Hello everyone, I'm Ananya Narain from Geospatial World, and I'm happy to be here and host Dustin Parkman, Vice President, Industry Solutions Group, for an interview on the Bentley's infrastructure solutions that we have. Dustin, welcome to this conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Can you let us know, give a brief introduction about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Dustin Parkman. I'm based in the U.S. and I look after Bentley's Industry Solutions team, which is essentially we set the overall kind of product strategies for our different our portfolio of products and how we position those and focus on integration of those products in particular market segments and industries. Industries being transportation or water or energy or digital cities, airports, et cetera, et cetera.
And what are the regional markets that you look at?
We look at all of them. Look at it. Look at all markets globally.
So, given the fact that we are in India right now, how do you look at India as a market?
I look at India as a market with just a tremendous amount of potential. You've got all the demand. You have all of the skilled workforce. You have some of the largest group of engineers of any country in the world. So not only do you have kind of the criteria and the demand to meet what the population needs, you also have government and private funding. So there's capital behind some of the need of the projects, and then you have a skilled workforce labor that's more than capable to execute. So I think it's a very exciting time for not only the country, but specifically for individuals that are in this field, whether you're a technology provider, an engineer, a construction contractor, or someone who's in the operations and maintenance phase of infrastructure. It's in a very exciting time for your career, for the challenges and opportunities. So not only is it a good career opportunity, but it's going to be should be a lot of fun.
You must be aware that India has an infrastructure vision for 2047, and we have also announced that we would be having $4.5 trillion US dollar worth of investment by 2040. So that's a huge amount of investment. So how do you foresee Bentley looking at a long-term approach in helping us achieve the infrastructure goals that we have set?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think that there's multi-facets to that. I mean, I think first it's about having kind of the investments that we make in the country with our teams on the ground, whether that be from a kind of customer-facing perspective and kind of handling the projects and being involved in that type of stuff, to actually our R&D centers that we have around the country that are innovating the technology that we would then provide not only locally here but also globally. So I think there's also because of that, the nature of that, I think there's also a lot of opportunity for the local teams to be able to take best practices from what other countries are doing. Mm-hmm. And leverage some of those skills that you have in-house, but maybe working on global projects rather than local projects.
Yeah. India as a country also has some very unique challenges, right? When we look from population to urbanization, these challenges are something which are very difficult to cope up with. So how do you think Bentley Solutions can help India's infrastructure story going forward?
Yeah, so I mean, on a traditional sense, the engineering applications, which are kind of our background, I think those will continue to play a large part in how we design and build infrastructure and rehabilitate it. But I think as we go forward, I think one of the things that we've been working on from a strategic point of view is how do you leverage that information that's created. So today, this is not unique to India, but I would say it's probably more extreme here, whereas each engineering discipline kind of works in a silo, where the data is created for one purpose really. It's for the design, or it's for a particular brownfield project. And so I think from a maturity level, from a data management, data governance standpoint, I think we'll start to see that to improve. So it won't be so kind of unmanaged. I think with the management of that information, there's an opportunity for organizations to really kind of up-level that equity they have in that information, not only just past data, but how to predict future scenarios. And so with regards to that, I think we will be one of the key providers to infrastructure professionals on how you're going to use that information to benefit downstream. So, and there's literally dozens of value cases how that information can be used. So everything from constructability, that's a little bit more traditional. But as we're trying to more and more simulate circumstances, not just for new projects, but for things that are already as built and how they're going to stand up to environmental conditions and economic conditions and extreme urbanization, just increased pressure that's going to be put on your infrastructure. Being able to simulate that virtually and kind of get out in front of it to say, okay, well, in this criteria, this is what's going to happen, right? This is where your fail modes are going to be. This is where you're going to have catastrophe, and now you got to act upon that information, right?
Yes.
And then I think as a technology provider, we're really excited about kind of the insights and the analytics of leveraging all this data that we have a tremendous amount of domain expertise in, but for other purposes beyond just traditional design and engineering.
One of the very interesting things that you mentioned is that generally, particularly in India also, engineering disciplines, they tend to function in silos.
Yeah.
And that is one of the major challenges when we talk about digital transformation, right? So how do you look at the digital transformation maturity cycle of Indian infrastructure? How do you see that growing in the next coming years?
There's some good intentions in the market already. You're starting to see BIM requirements and some of these kind of predecessors, right? So those are essentially kind of building blocks towards more of a fully data governance. So I think each organization, whether you're sitting in the private sector for an engineering company, or you're an owner operator, or you're in a public sector, you are going to have to look at your own kind of internal strategies as to how do you want to manage data and what are the outcomes and the KPIs you want to get from it. I think the outcomes and the KPIs for these organizations are no different than the ones that they already have today, right?
Yeah.
That, you already have problems.
Yes.
Right. So being able to work backwards from the problems that you have today and really kind of taking an inward look at, okay, how can data help us solve this problem? And then developing a governance strategy around that. Then you have to choose a technology provider that's going to provide you the tools that can actually facilitate those needs.
A very interesting thing that generally happens in, particularly again talking from an Indian context, is that we see technology being adopted in the initial phases. Like you mentioned BIM, we do have a BIM mandate in airports sector, but we're still looking for a mandate somewhere down in transportation, roads and highways and but when we look at the life cycle of it, right to operations and maintenance, we don't have anything, and I think the usage of technology is much less. What can we do as an industry ecosystem to ensure that people understand the value and benefit of technology for their entire life cycle?
I think more than anything, it's proof of value. And so the way that it typically happens in other markets is you have one industry that is typically a leader. And for years, it was always kind of the process industries. Industries because they were private, they were financially driven, to actually get performance, as opposed to the public sector has a different set of KPIs. And so that market was always further ahead than, say, transportation or some of these other markets. We've seen that gap close in outside of India. We have seen that happen, right? You are seeing North America and the UK and other places where they've created their BIM mandates and with kind of governance and metrics in order to get funding, right? So at the end of the day, there's usually a carrot or a stick to get a market over the hump, with the intent of, if you get them over that chasm, that there's real measurable value. And if you have that, then it becomes very easy to convince other people or other industries to fast follow. Fast is relative, it's infrastructure, so nothing really moves extremely fast. but that's kind of the model that we've seen other markets do. So you take, for example, the UK used the 2007 Olympics as their catalyst to drive something. And that was when they did their kind of BIM mandates, if you will. Now, that was pretty successful, but was it complete? No. I mean, but it did provide them kind of a basis to kind of get their houses in order.
Yes.
And so you have some of that mechanism with the Vision 2047 project, right? There's going to be private funding, there's going to be government funding. It will likely come with some strings attached there, where those projects will have to meet certain requirements. I'm fairly optimistic that those will have some of those more digital transformation requirements built into them. Haven't seen it yet, but I think that's how I think it will happen.
So let's shift our gears a little bit and delve into the technology aspect of it. One of the things that was really exciting that I've been seeing today at Bentley Illuminate is the talk of geospatial technologies, which is often missing from the conversation when we look at the infrastructure industry as a whole. So it was very nice to see geospatial technologies form a very important part of the puzzle that we look at when we look at the infrastructure component. What are your thoughts on it? How important is geospatial?
I mean, geospatial is kind of a critical part of what we've been trying to do with regards to pulling all the different data together. Now, we've been able to pull information together for a number of years, but it hasn't really been easy. And when I say the different types of data, I'm talking about the usual suspects we see in infrastructure, which are there's engineering data, there's survey information, there might be some type of field data that's being collected, and then obviously infrastructure sits on the earth.
Yes.
And oftentimes it takes up a lot of space.
Yes.
And so having a geospatial component of it is kind of a necessary thing. And it's been there for a number of years. I mean, we've been working with geospatial data for decades. What I'm really excited about what we're doing now is with the acquisition of Cesium, we're able to really kind of marry that up with some of what I would call our core competencies, which are high density vector graphics and 3D and 4D and 5D geometry. So having a 3D GIS environment that matches up with complements the engineering data that we're really, really good with is really a powerful thing, and it really fits in perfectly with our digital twin strategy. So we've had a geospatial component to that strategy for a number of years, but it always felt like it wasn't perfect because we were always having to marry up 3D graphics and all this stuff with 2D GIS. Which is still sufficient, but as we're looking forward to what's possible with the future, 3D tiles and 3D GIS is a better fit for what we're trying to do as an organization.
First of all, congratulations on the acquisition. I think it is a fabulous acquisition that would help enable the industry to grow in many ways, and it will also help enable the adoption of technology to happen in multiple ways, which I don't think I can imagine, right from gaming industry to infrastructure industry. What Cesium brings to the table and what Bentley brings to the table, the marriage of both I'm really looking forward to it, and it's quite exciting. You also mentioned that this acquisition is also going to enhance and augment the digital twin capabilities of Bentley. Right. So what do we see in the next 2 to 3 years? What do you think will change?
I think our first step is looking at these two things as two platforms. We have our iTwin platform and we have a Cesium platform. Bringing those together is a natural fit, and then making both of them prevalent throughout our portfolio of applications is essentially how we would see the integration, if you will, of the acquisition taking place. So we're super excited about that. We're super excited about making geospatial workflows be prevalent throughout all of our applications, and Cesium is kind of a critical part of making that all happen as a part of our iTwin platform.
If we leave this acquisition aside and if we start talking about digital twin as a technology, how do you see that technology adoption evolving?
So we're seeing the adoption At the moment, we're seeing a lot of it in a couple different workflows. One, we're seeing it still in project delivery for multidiscipline workflows. So where you want to do complex space management, or you want to do complex simulation across multiple engineering disciplines. So water and transportation, you want to do drainage and water. You got to model a road or a railway network, and you want to understand how that's going to tie into a drainage system, and that's going to fit into your wastewater management, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Those are examples where we probably see the most of it.
Okay.
On the flip side of it, we're also seeing it in the operations and maintenance side. And so on the operations and maintenance side of it, we've been seeing it as kind of a, let's call it a 360 view of infrastructure from design, build, operate, and maintain, where engineering data is still pretty prevalent. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's still kind of the core basis of what we would call a digital twin. It's a cornerstone of it. But they're leveraging that information for either upstream planning, they're using it for to aid their maintenance teams. So if you have teams in the field and they're going to go maintain a water pipe or a meter or whatever it may be, having access to information, having that information geospatially coordinated, being able to use it as a way to index other information that you might need to do your job more effectively. We're seeing that, but we've seen that across water. We've seen it in some of the bridge. We're using kind of the survey acquisition of as-built infrastructure, and then being able to analyze what we capture. So we'll take some photogrammetry, take a LiDAR scan or terrestrial survey, whatever it might be, and then be able to basically reconstruct the physical geometry of it, and then analyze that geometry for degradations, for maintenance activities, et cetera, et cetera. So those are some of the common areas where we're seeing it. It's almost more like supplemental information to traditional operate and maintain workflows. Okay. So those are kind of the two predominant ones we're seeing. Other ones we are seeing in some cases, which is more kind of the planner workflows. So airports and some in digital cities, we've seen, I think that was one of the examples I showed this morning with Siemensstadt. Yeah. There's a number of those types of examples too, where you have kind of city planners using that digital twin as a way to coordinate with their different kind of sub-departments, whether it's a sewer and water board or it's a transportation department, et cetera. Each one of those departments typically kind of operates independently of the city. They have their own kind of governance, but it still offers a way to kind of coordinate and have a 360 view of what needs to happen.
Even in India, I think Bentley has a partnership with Genesis International, and there are some sort of 3D digital cities projects that are going on in Mumbai, Maharashtra, and some of those other cities where we are trying to develop a 3D digital twin of the city. So is that the example where we can talk about developing a citywide digital twin?
Yeah, that would be the primary example where we would use that, and it becomes more of a planning tool rather than a core operating tool. So if you want to understand kind of like what's going to happen with a 100-year flood in a particular area, you want to understand the impact that's going to have on the existing drainage network. Those are simulations that you can run to actually plan for where you're going to deploy your capital and which projects need to get prioritized, et cetera, et cetera.
At Geospatial World, one of the things that we have taken up is we have established a non-executive digital twin strategy for Indian infrastructure. And Bentley is one of our principal partners to drive that initiative, where we're trying to push for a digital twin mandate in Indian infrastructure projects. How far do you think can a digital twin strategy or a mandate from the government of India can help drive technology implementation?
Well, it depends on what's behind the mandate. Behavior typically follows incentive. Whatever that incentive may be, whether it's financial or otherwise. I think having the government stand behind it will certainly draw attention to all the different suppliers in the value chain, because they'll want to be kind of first of the pack, right? If it's going to give someone either a competitive advantage, or if there are incentive structures to encourage that behavior, or penalties, that typically does get more people involved. I think government can play a key role, and the initial drivers. I think beyond the initial drivers, it actually has to deliver real value to everyone in the value chain. Otherwise, I think if it's just value to one person, one organization versus the other, you get a lot of blowback, and it becomes a slow drag, right? So I think looking at it holistically through a lot of different lenses, like what's the benefit to take the public sector, for example, if it's government funding, we got to look at what the value is to the public sector. Private sector's got to determine whether that if they can meet that value without any additional pain on their end, or maybe if there is additional pain, is there additional price for them to gain, and still value to be had from the operator? All those things are complex things that you have to work through.
That's true. Your last parting message on 3 top things that you would want to take forward from the conference as well as from this conversation.
First, I'm excited about what's happening here in India. I want us to be a key part of it. I think we're well positioned to work with the country and all the different suppliers to help them meet the goals of the vision for 2047. I think it's an exciting time for professionals in this industry. It's a good time to be an engineer. It's a good time to be an infrastructure professional. And and my third takeaway would just be that I hope the industry is open-minded and kind of embraces this idea of digital transformation. Not that it's going to solve all the problems, right? But I think it can be a force multiplier and really enable these organizations, these individuals to meet the needs of India, but also grow as individuals and upskill their own value as individuals. And I think on the other end of it, right, I think if India does capture the opportunity in front of them, it's not just the local impact they can have. On the other side of this, there's really a global impact that they can have.
Thank you so much for giving us time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.